Hey guys, it's me Elizabeth. Welcome back to another reading wrap up for the month of January 2024. I feel like I actually did pretty awesome in terms of just reading and overall like the numbers. Like I read 9 books this month. That's pretty good. Now let's go through all the different stats that I have before we get into the actual books. I'm gonna maybe attempt to make this a thing, so the stats are gonna consist of how many books I read, how many books I read that were off of my TBR, and how many books I read that were not on my TBR, because I do have an audiobook subscription, so I do listen to audiobooks that I don't own. I try to listen to books that I own, but it doesn't always work out that way because there's just so many books that I'm dying to read, okay? And then I guess we'll give you like the average star rating and that. So I already said, I read 9 books this month. That's pretty impressive for me. I don't read, like, most of these were audiobooks. That'll also be another stat. Audiobook versus physical book. They were mostly audiobooks. I'm best at listening to audiobooks if I actually want to get my number. Like, if I actually want to read books, audiobooks is my best bet in actually getting lots of books read. If I read, like, I read physically a lot this month. I just didn't finish any of the books that I read physically. I started a book, and I started another book, and I started another. As for an average star rating, my average star was 4. Mostly, all of these books mostly got 4 stars, which is actually pretty good because 4-star books are really good books. And as for audiobook, I'll be real honest with you. I technically listened to all 9 of these on audio, but one of them I read physically with the audiobook. I'm sorry, it's just what happened. I ended up listening to a lot of audiobooks this month. I'm hoping to change that. Like, I'm hoping to slowly get myself back into, like, reading physical books more often than audiobooks. I'm still reading physically, I'm just not finishing physical books very quickly. I read a couple pages here, a couple pages there, and then with audiobooks, I can listen to, like, an audiobook in a day, and that's why I've read so many books, and that's also why they're all audiobooks, because I can listen to them so much quicker than I can read physically. So, I'm sorry if this, like, baffles you because you're like, audiobooks isn't reading or whatever. It's like, actually, I just consumed the exact same story you would have consumed reading it physically. So, yeah. Don't know what you want to do with that. But let's just get into the actual books. The first book that I read in the year / the month of January was the one that I read physically and listened to the audiobook at the same time, and that is Blue Like Jazz by Donald Miller. This is a Christian nonfiction. Basically, it says here, 9 religious thoughts on Christian spirituality. And it's about Donald Miller. And I annotated this, so you can tell that this was a pretty good book. I went into this book because I found this at a thrift store, and I bought it because of the movie. There's a movie for this, which I still need to finish watching. But I've watched this movie multiple times. I really like the movie. One of my favorite musical artists, made this movie, Steve Taylor. And so that's why I was interested in this book. But then when I put the book on my TBR, because I unwrapped it with the newspaper books, I was kind of like, I don't know if I actually want to read this. Like, in theory, it sounded good at the time when I bought it at the thrift store, but then when I actually had it on my TBR, it's kind of like, I don't know about this. But then I decided I was going to just give it a shot. And I started reading it, and then I decided to listen to the audiobook at the same time. And I got to, like, chapter 3, and I was like, wow, actually, I'm really enjoying this. So I came across something in here, and I was like, I didn't know I was going to be annotating this, but I'm going to underline that. And it was this paragraph in here. It goes from the bottom page to the top of that page. And then, what do you know? I ended up annotating the whole thing. So, there's that. I am rating my books based off the Call Power rating system. This one I did give a 4-star based off the Call Power system. It ended up as a 4-star, and that's every single book that I've done in the Call Power rating system. I do the Call Power rating system, but in my head I'm like, if I wasn't doing the Call Power rating system, this is what I would rate it, and it just turns out that exact same number with the Call Power rating system. So that just, I don't know if that just tells you how good the Call Power rating system is or what. If you're confused and you're like, what's the Call Power rating system? It's basically this rating system that someone on BookTube came up with, and it's the next book that I read in the month of January was Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. I've officially read a Robin Hobb book. I'm there. I've finally done it, and now I gotta continue on. But everyone who reads fantasy reads Robin Hobb, talks about Robin Hobb, is obsessed with Robin Hobb. Everyone says she's the queen of fantasy. Everyone loves Robin Hobb books. Everyone's obsessed, and even people who didn't like the Farseer trilogy love the Live Ship Traders trilogy. And so, like, and Robin Hobb has like 10, not 10, but like 6 different trilogies, possibly more. I don't know the exact number anymore, but you know, she's got this trilogy, she got another trilogy comes after, another trilogy comes after. Like, there's so many books, and one of them has, I think, like maybe 4 or 5 books in it, so it's not a trilogy, but there's so many books in this world. And this first one is the Farseer trilogy, and this is the first book, Assassin's Apprentice. And when I first started reading this, I actually started reading this physically, so I read part of this one physically. I was like, there is absolutely nothing happening right now, and this is like so slow. I'm like, but I finally was like, okay, I'm gonna listen to the audiobook. I did that, and that was the ticket because, you know, I read the book. And actually, this was really good. I did really enjoy this. I thought this was so much fun. I thought this was really fun. I did give it a 4 stars. Call Power rating system, it is a 4 stars. So I did really enjoy this, but I will say you have to get past like the first couple of chapters, or first, like, even you have to at least get like part of the way through it before you decide to DNF or something, because it does start out kind of slow, and it is kind of just a slow paced book, I would say, throughout the whole thing. Next, I listened to book 6 of the Wheel of Time, Lord of Chaos. What to say? This was another slow one. This one is one of those middle books where it feels like there's nothing happening. And I feel like people are always talking about, I think it's like book 9 or something like that. At the end, I did get to the end, obviously I listened to the audiobook of this. And actually, I did really like it by the end of the book. I was like, this was really fun. I loved being in this world. It was a really good book. But in the middle, as I was in this book, I was just kind of like, this is so slow. There's like nothing happening right now. I do not care about what is going on right now because nothing is going on. Just people talking and just stuff, like nothing very exciting. But once I got to the end, some stuff happened at the end, and I was like, actually, this was really fun. I did enjoy being in this world again. And I love Robert Jordan's writing. Obviously, this is Wheel of Time, so it was still pretty amazing, but it was definitely one of the slower books that I've read so far in the series. And based on the Call Power rating system, this got another 4 stars. It was really good, but just not nearly as good as the other ones so far. This is my least favorite so far out of the 6 I've read. So next we have a non-fiction, and that is The Narnian by Alan Jacobs. This was... No, I did this for the Read Your Shop challenge for Chantel Reads All Day. The prompt was a cat on the cover because I'm following her Read Your Shop challenge and I'm doing the Ella Montgomery side, and of course, I picked Ella Montgomery because she's literally one of my favorite authors of all time. And I was like, I haven't really read that much about Arthur Conan Doyle, and I really want to do the Ella Montgomery one because I like obsessed with Ella Montgomery. But of course, the very first prompt was like the hardest prompt to ever fulfill because I don't own books with cats on the cover because I hate cats to death. Literally not kidding. But I found this one, and she said that like any cat counts. Doesn't have to be a house cat. This is one of the great cats. These kind of cats are cool because these are actual, like, legit cool animals. House cats, however, nope. Anyways, but I did read this for the Read Yourself Challenge. I was very much contemplating DNFing this or not reading this. Not DNFing it because I didn't start it. But I was very much contemplating just not reading this and just doing something else for the Read Yourself Challenge, even though I didn't own any other books. The only other book I own with a cat on it is I forget what, one of the Nevermore books, the Morgan Crow books, has a cat on the cover, but I already read that book. Like, I'm not going to reread a book to fulfill your prompt. I'm not going to do that. So I was trying to, like, see if I could find any other books on my shelves. And then I just decided, you know what? I'm going to listen to the audiobook of this because then I'll actually legitimately read it. And you know what? I listened to the audiobook of this and it was really good. And I really liked it. So I definitely recommend, if you're into C.S. Lewis, if you want to know more about him, this was actually a really solid book. I gave this 4 stars. Next, I listened to The Unmaking of June Farrell by Adrienne Young. I was not expecting this book to be what it was. So basically, I actually got this from Book of the Month, as you can tell. It was like some sort of magical realism type thing. Not expecting to like this as much as I did. I figured this will probably be like a 3-star book. It'll probably be fun, but like not amazing. This was amazing. I loved this book. This did get a 4 stars with the Callpot rating system. I loved it. I highly recommend. This book was so much fun. Like, I was not expecting this to be what it was all. I didn't even realize that we were having like a time travel thing. Like, I thought this was, I don't even know what I thought. It's just so good. You have to read it. It's really interesting. If you are even vaguely interested in this, you should read it because it's not probably going to be so much better than you think it's going to be. I really like this. I had a lot of fun. The next book is one of the ones I don't own. I'm actually quite surprised. I thought I read more books that I didn't own, but I only read 3 books that I don't own physically, which is actually pretty decent considering that I'm trying to read my physical TBR. Hopefully I can make that number go down this month and read only books on my TBR, but I at least only read 3 and not like a month, which is nice. But I did read Dark Age, obviously, by Pierce Brown, because I had to like continue in the Red Rising saga. Like, I can't not read these books. I can't believe I'm still reading Lightbringer right now. I can't believe that I'm not finished with that book yet. And yeah, Dark Age. What to say? It's a Pierce Brown book. So if it's not a 5 stars, then you gotta be very surprised because this was a 5 stars. I loved it. This was amazing. Eons better than Iron Gold. I mean, of course. Iron Gold went downhill a bit, but we went uphill. Super went uphill. And Dark Age just, I don't know how else to say this except that you need to freaking read the Red Rising saga. You need to read Pierce Brown because his writing is amazing. His stories, his characters, this whole thing, Dark Age, is amazing. So if you haven't ever read the Red Rising books, what are you doing with your life? What can I say? Dark Age. I loved it. It was so good. I can't say much more about it because it's the 5th book in the series. So just go read Red Rising. Next, I read a book off my physical TBR, and that is 8 Cousins by Louisa May Alcott. I did actually find an audiobook for this on YouTube and just decided to listen to the free audiobook because I figured I was trying to get as many of the books off my January TBR in January as possible, and I read like majority of my January TBR. I'm pretty impressed with that. I think there's a couple books I didn't read. I read 8 Cousins, and this is Louisa May Alcott, obviously, and actually, I really enjoyed this. I had a really fun time listening to this while I was at work. It was such a comfy, cozy read. Basically, we're following this girl, Rose, and her father died, and she's living with her aunt, and it's been like a year, and she's been living with her aunt for like a year. Her uncle's coming. He's like been traveling around the world or whatever, and so he's coming to take care of her for like a year, and then at the end of this year, basically she gets they're gonna figure out who she's gonna like actually stay with, and she ends up making friends with her cousins, and it's just such a good book. It's just a nice, wholesome, comfy, cozy read. Definitely recommend if you like Louisa May Alcott or if you like Victorian era cozy books. This was fun. Did give this one a 4 stars as well because I really enjoyed it. The next book I read this month is also something I don't own, and that is Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. I was not expecting this book. What? I have been dying to read this book for like a while now, like a few months, because I've heard some people on BookTube talking about it and it sounds really good and all that. I didn't know a whole ton about what this book was about, but I knew it was a science fiction novel and I knew I was interested in it. But oh my gosh, I didn't know anything about it apparently. This book was phenomenal. I absolutely loved this. I listened to this one fairly quickly as well, and let's just say I gave this a 5 stars. I loved this book. I thought it was awesome. I thought it was so good. It was so interesting, and I loved it. Highly recommend. If you're into sci-fi, read Ender's Game. If you're into sci-fi, you probably already have read it, but even so, Ender's Game, I loved it a lot. It was so good. The last book I read in the month of January, the 9th book and the 3rd book that I don't own, is Starsight by Brandon Sanderson. This is book 2 in his sci-fi series. There's 4 books, I believe. And you know what? This was a great, solid book. I loved it. I liked the first one, Skyward. I thought it was a really good book. I think I gave that one like a 4 stars or something. But this one was so good. Like, it got better. This one did get a 4 stars as well. Again, based off the Callpower rating system. But I loved it. I thought it was so good. It was so much better. Not so much, but it was a smidgen better than the first one. It was just so much fun. I'm not going to say too much about it because it's the 2nd book in the series, but I really enjoyed this. Excuse that background noise. My father is cutting something out in the garage, and my room is literally, the garage is on the other side of this wall, so, glass door, so excuse that. But basically, I liked this book a lot. I thought it was really good. A good solid read. I think I had a great solid reading month. All 4 stars except for 2 5s. Obviously, if I need to pick a favorite for this month, and my favorite book that I read this month, if you don't already know what it is based off of what I've said so far, it's definitely Dark Age. I mean, Pierce Brown for the win. It comes out on top every time. Like, he's just my new obsession. Pierce Brown, Red Rising is my new obsession. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next one. Hope you have your own fun reading adventures. Bye.
Till we strike soundings in the channel of old England, from Hush and from Sailing to City for the first land we made was a point called the Dead Man.